Hello, my name is Mike Andersen. I'm a singer, songwriter, guitar player from Denmark, and you're listening to Talkin Blues.
I'd like to begin by asking you about the 12-year-old kid playing guitar listening to Lightning Hopkins. Tell me about how the guitar came into your life and also how the blues came into your life.
For some reason, the guitar was always very appealing to me. So we had a guitar in my house, and I was playing around with it. And when I was about 10, I think, at my school, they offered lessons in various instruments, and I chose guitar. And I totally fell in love with it. And then, by coincidence, I heard a Ray Charles and B.B. King record when I was 12. And I never looked back.
Can I ask you what you were playing before you heard those records?
I was listening to whatever was on the radio at that time, which was more like, it's the era with Wham, Madonna, and the more rocky apartment was, Metallica and stuff like that. That was the time back then. MTV was quite big, so whatever was on there. And then I was a huge Beatles fan because my father had all the Beatles records.
Mm-hmm.
So to this day, I know all the Beatles records in and out because I was listening to them so early. But the thing about those first blues tracks is kind of funny because I'm old enough, so all the first records I bought was on vinyl, and round about this time the CD player came in, and it was a funny little period in Denmark where when people bought a new stereo, it had a CD player. But nobody had CDs. so we were actually playing with these CD players. You make them go in and out the tray, and then the local gas station started to have this thing where you could buy CDs, and my dad bought several CDs from there. One of them was a CD with classic American music. And on that CD were 2 songs with B.B. King and 2 songs with Ray Charles. And I imagine it had everything, Bob Dylan or Grateful Dead and stuff like that. But those 4 songs blew me away. And I still, talking about it, I can still feel what it did to me. It sounded so different from what I'd heard. It sounded true. It sounded dirty, it sounded emotional, and it just spoke to me. It was very different from Wham and Madonna.
Was it the vocals? Was it the
It was
guitar
very
or
much.
the piano?
It was actually very much the vocals, and very soon the B.B. King guitar tone. But to this day, even though I listen to all kinds of music, I think my main inspiration for singing is Ray Charles's voice, and my main guitar influence is B.B. King up until this day. If I get lost or if I kind of lose my sense of direction, I actually go back and listen, spend a day with myself and just with B.B. King and Ray Charles, and I feel it all again.
Can you elaborate on that, of that sense of loss? I mean, how does that happen? I presume you're talking musically.
Yeah, well, I think the journey I'm on and have been on in my adult life, when you fall in love that early with stuff like that, I became kind of a purist. That's the best word I can find for it. My main goal was to try to sound like that. And I spent all my hours trying to sound like that. I wanted people who played with me to sound like that. It was an obsession. And the older you get, you realize that, or I realized, it will always, I could come a little close, but it would always be an imitation or a kind of a, yeah, I would never be able to get it, because I didn't grow, I wasn't born into it. And so it'd always be kind of a bad copy. And then I started blending all other kinds of things in it, staying with my love for African American music, but allowing my own skinny white self from Denmark to shine through. That became my direction. I'm still on that path. And on that path, of course, sometimes you get lost. Because I know since I started listening to this so early that my music only makes sense if it has that soul. So I always try to maintain that. And everything I play on guitar, even if I didn't want it to, if I wanted to try it not to, I could. It's so influenced by B.B. King. So that's why I also have a frame where I know what I do sound well. But I really try to go into the corners of that frame. I love B.B. King, I love Lightning Hopkins, I love Muddy Waters and Elmore James, but I also love Leonard Cohen or Nick Cave or Rolling Stones, the Beatles. Right now I'm actually a huge fan of Billie Eilish. I think she's absolutely amazing. But so I want to try to allow these things into my sound. And sometimes it can be difficult because the blues society is also very conservative.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for many years, because my first work was was more standard, or was more, because I also felt the need to prove that I had been listening to this. I wanted people to recognize that I had been studying this. And then when people kind of like that, they expect you to continue doing that. But I realized very soon that the kind of artist I am is I already made that record. Now I want to do something else. And in the beginning of that, I was quite sensitive to people's reactions because I still felt I was bluesy. But then people call it, well, this is pop, or this is too rock, or this is too this, and this is too that. So those years were kind of frustrating for me until I realized it's okay, because people who wanted to be more bluesy or more old school, they're saying that out of love for old school blues. They would just like me to do that.
Right.
But I make an artistic choice that I don't thrive in that. So it's my job to convince them that this has a bluesy feel, but you could expect anything.
Well, I find it interesting.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. I find it interesting. So I'm curious as to when you were becoming obsessed with the blues.
Mm-hmm.
I presume you went through and learned about the history of it, the people, where they came from, and all that. And I don't know at what point you realized that you could never be completely that. Like, when you discover the blues at 12 and you think, this sounds great, I want to play like that, I want to sing like that. And then at one point or another realizing, I can't be completely that. Like, at what point do you realize that?
I think I realized it pretty early. And the funny thing is, I think when I realized it was, the better you get, I think I felt like the better I got at it, the further I got away. Because the better you get at playing, the better you get at listening, the more you realize how good it is and how far away I am from it. Even though I wanted to, but you realize that level of authenticity, authentic cultural African American sound is something, those guys had it around them all the time. It was invented at that time. They probably went to church for 8 hours every Sunday. It's so far away from my life. But I could still love it and make my version of it. But I think it was, thinking back, it was probably pretty early that frustration entered me, that, man, I'm never gonna be able to do that.
And yet, in 2002, your first album, My Love for the Blues, is pretty well a blues album.
Yeah, it is. It
So
is. Yeah. I mean, it's very traditional, and some of it is influenced, but that's still blues or rhythm and blues. I was a huge Robert Cray fan at that time, so I think you can hear some of that. And at that time, Robert Cray was considered breaking barriers, pushing it, but yeah, it's a traditional piece of work, and that, I think it was important for me at that time to state myself as a blues musician and to prove that I had been studying this, but already there, I was starting to write and take chances, and also my fascination for Robert Cray, I think, which started very early in my late teens. I think that also had something to do with with me choosing to be a searcher rather than a retro musician, because that's what fascinated me about him. That he sounded very much like, he just sounded like Robert Cray. He didn't try to sound like anybody else, and he implemented more contemporary sounding recordings, and that was really fascinating for me. And again, probably I had a few years there. Well, then let's try to sound like Robert Cray, and the better you get at that, you realize there's only one person who can do that. And that's Robert Cray. So, but talking of this, I see genre music, whether it be country or blues or jazz or there are kind of, the way I see, two directions, and I think both of them are very important. There is one where you go back and try to keep something from the old times alive, trying to get as close to that sound as possible. That's what I call retro.
Right.
When some people say, I want to make a record, and all the recording techniques and the way we write should sound as much as possible as 1962
Right.
or 58. And then you can do another, see, well, let's see where we can take it now. And I think both of them are very important, because one of them keeps something that's not here anymore alive, and the other one makes it still have a value in the present. I just realized where I thrive the best. And I have friends and colleagues who are more the other direction. They try to get close to something that sounds 70 years ago or 60 years ago. And I love to listen to it. I love it and I respect it a great deal. I just know I thrive better and I release my potential better in the other direction.
And then that means taking a risk, and that also means maybe alienating some people who are just traditionalists.
Yeah.
I wonder, what's the blues scene like, or what was the blues scene like in Denmark when you were growing up? Like what kind of scene was it?
Well, the thing is, when I grew up in a very small town way out in the country, all the way down near the Germany border.
Okay.
And then when I was around 15, 16, my parents got divorced and my mother moved to the next biggest city in Denmark called Aarhus.
Is that where you are right now?
And that's where I am right now, yeah. So I've been living here for more than 30 years. And that still is, but at that time very much was the music capital of Denmark. So I moved from a little town where my main thing was playing guitar in my room to a small city where you had jam sessions 3-4 times a week. so that was maybe that move is the most important, which was out of my influence, most important thing in my musical life, because I was all of a sudden put in a situation where I could go crazy with music, and there was a lot of good musicians. But what I came with was, like I said, B.B. King, Ray Charles, Elmore James, Muddy Waters. But when I came to Aarhus, it was very influenced by, I think you called it West Coast blues, right?
Right.
Rod Piazza, William Clark, stuff like that. Junior Watson, Kid Ramos, and I really loved that, and I tried the best I could. So what I came up with was not actually very hip in the blues environment, and I tried the best I could. It was a little too fast for me, That's Hollywood Fats guitar. It's really, really difficult to play. Junior Watson, I mean, those guys are geniuses, and it's almost jazz players. And later on, I kind of embraced the urban blues. I really studied so early, and then I went all in on that. But at that time, it was West Coast blues that was the thing in not only Denmark but in all of Europe. And I saw some amazing shows. I mean, they were here, Rod Piazza and the Mighty Flyers and William Clark, and they were amazing.
I was going to ask you, when you found this love for the blues, at what point did you first experience like what you would consider real blues in a live performance?
Oh, that was very early, because I heard B.B. King when I was 13 at a big festival in Denmark in 91. Yeah, so I'd be 14. I'm from 77. I was already obsessed with it, and my parents, all they heard from my room was B.B. King, and me trying to emulate that. So as a present, they bought tickets to this festival, which I'm very, very grateful for this day, and that was, of course, I was too young to go there. So my dad went with a friend of mine and me, and we stayed there in 2 tents. And on the day he was supposed to play on the Sunday, and we'd been there for a few days. Actually, I heard Robert Cray on that festival as well. My friend and I, we went to the stage like 5 or 6 hours before, stacked up with soda cans and candy and a little sandwich, just to have those front seats when he went on. And I think it must have been like when a young teenage girl see Justin Bieber or something. I don't remember details from it because I was so blown away. But I remember how it felt. It was amazing. And I think I saw B.B. King 10 or 12 times, and I had the honor of playing support for him 3 times. And he was good right up until the end. But this was still when he was standing up and very vital, and it was amazing.
So it lived up to your expectations.
Oh, yeah.
That's fantastic.
I think that was my first real blues experience. And then, Denmark has always had tradition for a lot of great jazz players and blues players spent years in Copenhagen and Stockholm and Paris. And one of the bluesmen who lived in Denmark for many years was champion Jack Dupree. And so I heard him very early. Also, I mean, it was a different thing than B.B. King, but he also really made an impression on me because he was so charming.
Mm-hmm.
And he was so different. He was so New Orleans. And I was just sitting in Denmark, a gray little country, and all of a sudden, all this charm and all this musicality. Yeah, that also made a huge impression on me.
I presume you've been to the States.
Mm-hmm.
How important was that journey?
I was in Chicago very young with my ex-wife. We were only 25 or something at that
For
time,
the blues?
and we went there for the blues, yeah. And it was, when you write songs and they're played on the radio, you get royalties.
Right.
And the first time, after my first record, no, so we must have been in our late 20s, yes, because the first time I tried to get a royalty check, it was not big, but it was like, what is this? And there was just enough money for her and me to take this trip. So we flew to Chicago for a week and went to, what's it called? Blues on Halstead and
Kingston Mines.
Kingston Mines. What's it called? Rosas?
Oh, yeah, Rosas.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that was huge.
Okay, yeah, so
Yeah.
what
and,
was
and,
that
and we
like?
went on Buddy Guy's Legends, and he was there. He was there, and I was so intimidated. I bought this T-shirt, and I wanted to go over and had it signed, and I had to ask my girlfriend to do it, and she was like, "What? Why? I mean, you're 6'6", and what's the matter with you?" But it was, I became 12 in that situation. So I was so intimidated. But then Bernard Allison played
Wow.
on Buddy Guy's Legends, and he went up and sang with them.
Was what you thought the blues to be in Denmark any different once you got to Chicago and saw
Yes,
that?
yes.
And how different was it? Like, how would you describe that difference?
I think it also had an impact on me stopping to imitate, because it was so real. All of a sudden, what I'd been doing and what I had seen people do, I don't mean to sound disrespectful, but it was more like playing a blues man, pretending to be it. And when you see it up close, and I was like, everything else seemed kind of fake.
Interesting.
And I think, yeah, and I think maybe I didn't want to be a fake. So, and I realized the only way I cannot be something I feel is a fake is to be me. And that has maybe an ounce of B.B. King and Ray Charles and Buddy Guy, but also mixed up with the time I grew up in and the other music I like. And then respecting that, because I started listening to this so early, there's a limit to how far I want to go and I can go, because I sound best with this blue, soulful influence underneath. I've also tried to make things where I got too far away from that. And when I listen to it, I feel, again, a little bit like a fake, because I'm abandoning what started in me so early.
I wonder. I mean, that's an amazing thought to have, to realize, yeah, this isn't really me. But at what point do you realize who you are? Like when you decide, okay, I can't be the blues man, or I'd rather not be the blues man. I don't know if you know what you want to be, who that person is musically.
Well, as you know as well as me, that those things, it's a process, just like being a human being. And my musical journey reminds me of that. I feel the same way about developing as a musician as I do as developing as a person. So it's a process, slowly and slowly, feeling like, I actually, someone asked me recently, what would you like to go with your life and with your, and the best answer I could come up with, I want to be as authentic as I can.
Right.
But I want to be as an authentic version of me. Whereas the retro path is more like trying to recreate something as authentical as possible. So for me, the musician part of me, the artist in me, and the person, I can't really separate them, Maybe because I started this so early, and I have no education. This is all I know to do. And your life perspective changes all the time. I mean, my thoughts and my ideas are very different now in my late 40s than they were in my 20s. And the older you get, at least in my case, the more you realize what's real and what's not real. And then keep going on a path that you realize feels fake for me. It doesn't taste well anymore at a certain age. But I can't pinpoint a situation. I think looking back, it was a feeling very, very early in me that, when people said, when I was very young and I made that record, called me a blues man, a little part of me became proud, and a huge part of me felt like, nah, I'm not. No, I'm not. I love blues, and even to this day, where I mix everything into it, there's not a day goes by that I don't listen to old school blues. It's such a huge part of me. But a true blues man is Lightning Hopkins or Buddy Guy, and I just had a different life.
Right.
So it wouldn't be authentic to sing about their life, because I have no idea what it was like to live on Southside Chicago in the 50s or pick cotton in Mississippi in 1920. I have no idea. I just like the sound. But I can sing about what goes on in my life in 2025 and still implement this sound I fell in love with. But I can't be a blues man. At least not in the cliche, because I know what the cliche means.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't feel like that. I just love the sound and the soul and the nerve of the music. I love it to death.
I wonder, you release your second album, which isn't as bluesy, and by the time you release your third album, which I think is in Echoes in 2010,
yeah.
I mean, the blues has disappeared, and you're writing more structured songs and doing more variety. And at the same time, it's a very successful album for you. And I don't know if the album was a game changer, or if your reputation as a musician had already grown to a point where it was going to support an album that was going to be successful. But I presume Echoes changed your life.
Totally. And it was indeed a game changer. That record changed. We mainly played at bars, and all of a sudden we were in bigger venues and concert halls, and all because of this record.
Did that surprise you? Like, was the momentum going that way anyways, or?
No, because everything happened quite quickly with the first record, and then the second was not a big success, and things were kind of slowing down. So it's actually a period in my life where I was very frustrated, and things weren't going too well. And this record took a long time to make, maybe because I was insecure and I was scared, and then actually musically, what I hear on that record is that this is a time where neo soul was breaking through. Alicia Keys, D'Angelo, Erykah Badu, and that I totally freaked out about that, because this was soul exactly like I remember, Otis Redding, Aretha Franklin, Marvin Gaye, and they managed to make it sound so fresh. Totally respectful to where soul music comes from, and all of a sudden it sounded so fresh. Something that reminded me of how Robert Cray approached, 15 years earlier. This revitalized soul music. And I can hear in that record that I'm very influenced by that. There was a record with D'Angelo called Voodoo. I heard it in and out. And I think I had no idea at that time, but now I can hear that most of the album hits a fine balance of what I do best and what I was trying to do. Sometimes I can hear something I made years ago and say, this is trying too hard, or this is not taking chances enough. On that record, everything just clicked. And it was not an intellectual process. It just happened. And on that record is the most played song by far I have, Over You. And Over You is a song that just happened. And I hope I get another one, but I mean, who knows? It's just the right song with the right band, mixed by the right guy at the right time.
But when you say it happened, how did it happen? How did you write it? I presume it's one of those experiences where it just went through you.
Totally, and I'm not trying to say that those are the only good songs, because I have songs I'm proud of that took a year to write. But this was one of the very fast ones, and actually, the record was all done, ready to send off to mix, and it had taken a lot of time because I was trying all different stuff, and I kind of wore out my band. They were like, "Oh, come on!" And when it was all done, I called them one night and say, "I'm sorry, guys, but I wrote another song," and I could hear them in the phone, literally. And then we met up, and I said, I wrote this song, and I wanted to sound like, what was that great Ricky Lee Jones song?
Chucky's in Love?
Exactly. Or It's Got to Be Perfect. Yeah. So those I want that kind of swing. And then we actually recorded it in one night. And I did a few overdubs. But, and it doesn't sound like those songs, but it's that kind of swing, just a little slower. And there was actually kind of an atmosphere in the studio. Like, wow, this might have something. And I think it's a good thing you called everybody in, because, and then it just happened. It was mixed by an American amazing engineer called Russell Levardo, who was very big at that time from New York, and he actually mixed D'Angelo and those and he did a beautiful job. But it was a very unforced process. And I mean, looking back throughout all the years I've been doing this, that's where the magic happens. When you go out of your head and do things unforced. And that was a very unforced song. The record was not, but there were certain things that fell into place there for me.
How does it change your life?
Well, first of all, a few years after Echoes, I was able to make a living out of music, and I've been fortunate to do that ever since. And that started with that record. When you play bigger venues, you make a little bit more money. When the radio starts playing your songs, and people want you to collaborate with you and stuff like that, it takes some kind of success to a successful record or a successful song for people to notice you. And Over You and Echoes did that. So it changed my life that I was now a professional musician. And I think also it gave me more confidence. It gave me confidence in the way that this was not getting the acceptance of my first record, where it's purists saying, "Wow, good job, boy, you came close." This was more like, I'm telling my stories, I'm doing exactly what I like, I'm mixing things up, and blues freaks or more general music lovers tell me this music moves me. For me, there was a big difference. A big difference. You become more an artist in your own right.
And are you? I mean, obviously, when you have success with an album and get awards and have a hit record or whatever, it defines you in a bit. But did you think that this is who you were? before you released the album? Like, did you think, oh, this is who I am as a musician? This represents me better than anything else I've done.
Yes, I actually think I think I did. I was very, even though it was a tough birth, I felt this is. I remember feeling they can say what they want because I like this,
Right.
and I've seriously not all records I've had that feeling. I have had that feeling with the new record. I was talking to a very good colleague, a female singer from Denmark recently, and she put out a record almost the same time as I did with All Out of Love. And she wrote to me, "Oh, isn't it tough that we have to go through this insecurity every time?" And I said, "I'm sorry, but this time I'm just not with you, because I feel with all the scratches and all the wrongs, this is exactly how my music should sound right now." And it's kind of this, it's a really good feeling because it's a feeling that's before the critics. It's before you, it's not based on whether people like it or not. It's inside me. I feel this is how I want to sound at this time. And that's an amazing feeling. And I had that with Echoes as well. And it's not a feeling I've had on all records. Sometimes I've been, well, I've done the best I could. Let's see what they say.
Right.
That's a very different thing.
I'm curious as to, I mean, I want to talk about your new album because it's great, but I want to kind of work through it before.
Yeah, sure.
So you released a few more albums, and in that journey, you also become different musically, I think.
Yeah.
There are elements of, I mean, there's always a bit of the blues, but there are elements of singer-songwriter, and like a folk acoustic singer-songwriter. There's definitely the blues soul thing. Is it difficult to change like that, especially like the acoustic album and
Yeah.
and knowing whether or not you can bring your audience with you? I don't know if once you have success with something like Echoes, you have a better chance of just bringing people along because they like who you are and what you do. So that when you change, I don't know if it's a difficult thing for you to say, yeah, I'm going to go this direction this time. They'll follow me.
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. I mean, it sounds a little self-absorbed, and I don't mean it that way, but I really do not think about that when I make the music. I'm way too much into my vision of how this should sound right now, and then I take it as it comes. And there have been records where people have fallen off and said, "Wow, this is not me anymore." But I experienced that then others jump on the wagon. And I think I'm not the kind of artist that could kind of lure what people want and then make that. It's not how I work.
Right.
So it's not something I think about. It's something I experience afterwards. Oh man, I can see the ticket sales on the airplay charts. This wasn't received well. But it's not I don't have a plan that, to keep this audience and make it growing, we should do this. I can't do that.
I'm curious as to, because I don't know the geography very well. I've actually, been to Europe a few times. I was actually there a few weeks ago. And I know that the borders that I see, so I was in Belgium, and the borders that I automatically know as Belgium and the country is not necessarily the cultural borders. Like within Belgium, I understand that there's 3 distinctive areas. Yeah. And when I went to Bilbao and San Sebastian this year, I realized that the Basque region is something completely different than, the countries involved.
Yeah.
I don't know Denmark very well, but as an artist who comes from Denmark, and I know you've played all over the place and you've had success in many parts of Europe, how does that work in terms of how you establish yourself? I mean, obviously you've done very well in Denmark, but you do well in France. I know you've played in Norway. I know you've played in many other places. As a young artist, how do you navigate that, and what are your goals?
My goal is I would like to increase my audience. I would like to break new ground, but um, I want it to happen organically. And also, I'm almost 50. If I had a knack for writing a hit song and taking that kind of shortcut, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but when something blows up quickly, well, it would have happened by now. So I like the process where you play some venue and maybe 30 people comes up. You come back a year later, 80 people's there. A year later, 120. That slow way of building would annoy some people. I realized I really thrive in that way. It gives my life meaning. I love it, and I find that those people who discover it, they become very loyal. That wasn't forced on them from a meteor. They found this themselves. They became a part of the journey. So Echoes was mainly a Danish thing. Echoes was where in Denmark it kind of crossed over. It's, that term is actually fair in that way because I became from one who played on all the blues bars in the country to play the music venues, and people came in because they liked the songs and they had no idea what is blues and what is not.
Right.
So outside Denmark, this whole process started all over. Then I had to go to Germany, and it was 12 people, and hopefully next time it was 60. And I realized where some people say, oh, how can you take that? Well, my answer was, I love it. I found it gives my life a lot of meaning. And I'm still in that process. The latest thing was France, which is going really well now. But I went down there to play solo shows, and for 18 people. So that whole every time you enter a new country, it's not from scratch because with the internet so you kind of have a base to start on. But I like building that way. So where do I want to go? I want to continue that. I would really like sometimes if it happened faster. And I would like, my goal is not festivals. I don't even like going to festivals usually with 20,000 people. I feel uncomfortable. And the times when I play festivals, pop festivals, it's not really that fun because it has to be so efficient, to catch their interest because there are 5 other bands playing and it has to be. So that's not my goal. I would like to. My dream scenario is if I could play like 500 to 1,000 seaters in all of Europe, and maybe across the pond. That would be my dream.
Is going so when you said across the pond, is going to North America, is that important to you?
I've never tried for real to go there to tour. I've went there for inspiration. I've went there because the musical culture means so much to me, and also no matter where you're from in Europe, I mean, we're very proud of our very old cultural history.
Mm-hmm.
But even if you want to admit it or not, we're all very, very much influenced by the last 100 years of pop culture from America.
Right.
Very much. And so that's why also I think it's so appealing for Europeans to see America, because everything we do here now is very much, it comes from America, North America, from the States. So I think we're a little bit back to what we talked about earlier. Me coming to the U.S. as a blues artist is a little bit, I mean, I would love to go. It's a little bit pointless because it would like bringing sand to Sahara.
Right.
There are so many and so many who does it better than me. So if I should go for real to America, it should be because the mix of music, which is rooted in blues, gets a position where it's where America would like, "Oh, well, we'd like you to hear that take. Come over here and play that for us." But to go and imitate people who does it better than me makes no sense. Then I'd rather go there and listen to them.
Not having seen you live, I don't know how much blues is in your show, but hearing the latest album, I mean, I hear the blues influence, but it's not a blues album.
No.
So
I think there's still blues elements in my live show, especially the guitar part.
right.
Yeah.
But I listened to that new album, which as I said, is a fantastic album.
Thank you.
And I hear songs and great songs, you know, which I think is so important because unfortunately, I think a lot of the blues today has become about the solo.
Yeah.
And it's not, I mean, there's some clever songs and, you know, there's still some great artists. But so much of what you see in festivals are long guitar solos.
Yeah.
And what I hear is like great songs from the very beginning to the end of the album, like All Out of Love, and really clever lyrics. I'm not a lyric listening kind of guy, but you know, just the title track, All Out of Love, can be taken in so many different ways.
Yeah.
The other one that just caught my ear was Before I Was Good, I Was Better.
Right.
Like, that's just brilliant.
Thank you.
Tell me about that song. No, actually, let me ask you about you singing, because that's something that we haven't talked about. I know that you've started playing the guitar and everything, but where does your singing come from?
I think I've always been singing, but I was very shy about it up until I was 20. And it was to a degree where my band member, the people I played with, said, "Why don't you sing? You know, when you walk around here singing, it sounds amazing." But I was too shy about it. And all of a sudden, the first time I tried it, I felt I found my spot.
Wow.
Yeah, it was so releasing for me. Because up until that, I was the sideman on guitar. And when I started singing, I mean, I could never choose because playing guitar is such a vital part of me.
Right.
But if someone put a knife on my throat and said, "You have to choose," I would actually choose singing. It has a meditative effect on me. Through the pandemic, where I couldn't go out for shows, I didn't sing for a year live. Of course, I sang all the time back home, but this full-on singing, I went into depression. That there's just such a vital part of me. So basically, I just love singing, and but that's also a process. You know, in the beginning, I wanted to sound like Ray Charles, and no one can. Then I wanted to sound like Sam Cooke, and no one can. And then you find your voice slowly. And also, people have told me with a new record, "Oh, some of it sounds like Leonard Cohen." And I'd never even thought about that for a second when I did it. But it's because I've been listening to a lot of Leonard Cohen the past years, and then it influences what comes in. It influences what comes out. But I'm glad you're mentioning the songwriting, because that's what I like. And I can see now, all the way back to my early influences, B.B. King and Ray Charles were also about songs. I know that B.B. King became maybe the most influential guitar player, but when you listen to him, he tells the story as it's the most important thing. He wants to get across, and he wants you to understand the words, and he wants you to understand the emotion. And his guitar is actually to the side. He doesn't even touch it. And then when the words are done, he grabs that guitar and he runs out of words and he finishes there. But the story is super important for him. And Ray Charles had amazing songs. Careless Love. I mean, he didn't write that, but you know what I mean. Sure. All those amazing songs. So I think actually from the very beginning, the songs were important to me. And I've never been a guitar, that kind of artist who kind of sang a verse and played 8 rounds of solo and finished with a verse. It doesn't speak to me. I have a lot of friends and people who really are into that. You know, they're really into like Joe Bonamassa and stuff like that with a lot of solos, and I respect it, but it doesn't move me. I'm moved by new artists like Leon Bridges and, songs.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved that the guitar can kind of elaborate on that. But that's that's how I put it together. I want the words and the songs, and then the guitar can elaborate.
Well, I think songs live a lot longer than a guitar solo.
Yeah. Well, there are some people who are really, really good at playing
Yeah.
guitar solos, way better than me. But it's all back to what turns me on and what moves me. And I'm moved by stories and communication. And I find that to be mainly in the vocal and in the stories. And you said that from Echoes up until now, you sensed a direction towards songs.
Mm-hmm.
And looking back, you're exactly right. That's actually what happened to me. All of a sudden, Bill Withers, for me, became like a god. Grandma's Hands, Ain't No Sunshine. How can you write this one line, Ain't No Sunshine, when she's gone? And everybody feels it. Everybody's going, oh.
Yeah.
That became magic to me. And all of a sudden, then I lost interest of playing long guitar solos, because that was what it was about for me. I'm not saying that I'm nowhere near Bill Withers, but then the whole songwriting process started in me. I became a huge Bob Dylan fan, Neil Young, and so the songwriting thing. I also had to work on that for a while. To how do I implement these things so I can use my bluesy guitar playing but still be about the songs, and then I discovered what we over here now call Americana. I don't know if that's a European term of it.
No, we hear it here.
Okay, yeah. Which is probably already, here you would call even Bonnie Raitt or Kepmo Americana,
Mm-hmm.
but also newer bands like Bonnie Light Horseman and stuff like that. I've been listening to that a lot, and that's also about the songs. Maybe because it comes from the folk scene.
Yeah.
But basically, I'm actually very happy and proud that you mentioned the songwriting, because that's very important for me.
Well, it's an amazing collection of songs, and I don't often hear that these days. And so when Andreas suggested I talk to you,
Mm-hmm.
I checked out the album and I listened to it, and by the second or third listening, it was like, wow, I really like some of these songs.
Oh, cool.
Like almost like the olden days of the radio kind of stuff. There were songs that I just thought, and it's also the variety. It's not one style. So when I hear the title song, which is very different from Don't Waste Your Time,
Right.
and the more I hear it, the more catchier it gets.
No, thanks.
And it's so different from most of the other songs.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And I in the world of the blues, where I
Mm-hmm.
put on an album and I kind of hear the same kind of thing throughout. I'm not saying
Mm-hmm.
slow blues is the same as jump blues and
No.
acoustic blues, but there's a big difference between All Out of Love going directly into Don't Waste Your Time.
Yeah, and even to Big Mouth, which is kind of front porch blues.
Yeah, and then back to Clean House, which is driving. Like it's, and I just love that, and I don't hear that as much. So that's what really impressed me, and I thought.
And what I found out is some people find that fascinating and brave, and some people are a little bit, this is too versatile, and it's all okay with me, because this record, I didn't think when we did it, is this too this? Is this too? Just do it. And even Clean House, the other day, a radio journalist said, "It reminds me of Peter Gabriel," and I was like, "What?" But then I can hear it.
I can hear
what he
that too,
means.
yeah.
So it was all made out of in the flow and in just what feels good is good, and then time will tell what turns people on. Would you want me to elaborate on those two songs you mentioned?
Well,
All Out of Love and Before I Was Good?
Sure. I mean, I'm kind of curious as to, in general, I think I know what kind of inspired this album, but can you talk about that? It seems like there's a theme here.
Well, the songs are written in the years after my divorce. I was married for 24 years. And those years after that are, for everybody who's tried it very difficult.
I can imagine.
But what I realized is it's full of mixed emotions.
Mm-hmm.
It's like every emotion at once. So at the same time you're experiencing grief or loss, disappointment, you're experiencing hope and an openness to a new future.
Right.
So you bounce back and forth in these, and I think most of the songs are written within that. So it's not that it's all sad songs. Some of them are actually about, wow, there's a new future here. But a lot of the songs are about how difficult that is. So All Out of Love actually came from the expression, you can do something out of love,
right,
or you can be all out of love.
Right.
And that's how I experienced deciding a divorce. Did I do that out of love, or did I do it because I ran out of love? And then I wrote that song where all the lines can go both ways.
Mm-hmm.
And the song never concludes with which one it is. And that I actually thought about later, that it actually doesn't never conclude. Maybe because it's both.
Right.
So, and I thought that title or that story described very much that period of my life where it's both. It's very polarized. So that's why I chose it as the title.
So obviously you write about things that are very personal to you and have done so throughout your life. But how difficult is it, especially having gone through something that difficult as a separation or divorce, and to write and sing songs about that experience or the results of those experiences? When you go back to it a few years later, what is that like?
You mean does it feel too private?
Yeah, or does it feel too private, or are you able to step out of that and look at it?
Oh, that's a very interesting question, because I always write, it has to be something I can really feel.
Right.
And therefore, it's mostly something I've experienced. But it could be something people tell me. It could be a movie. It could be something that really makes an impact on me. That's very important. Some songwriters are good at saying, well, could you write a song about this in this tempo? Some people really have a knack for that. I don't. It has to be something I can feel for a song to start.
Right.
But some people think that it's all one-to-one, and it's not. But it's sometimes, the B part of the third verse can take a detour and become fiction.
Mm-hmm.
So I always feel the songs very intensely, and I know what they're about, but it's not necessarily realism all the way through. So I also have kind of, and this is something that I realized later on. I think for it to be a good song, it has to rise above diary writing. If it's only for my sake, if it's only something, then I should write in a diary. A good song, and sometimes you don't realize until it's actually out there, but a good song rises above that and becomes something other people can relate to.
Right.
So that's very important for me. And but when I make the songs, when I write the songs, I don't have that filter. Is this too private? Is this too... when I select the songs, I would never put somebody out there. I mean, these songs, when you listen to them, are from my perspective. I never sing about how did this feel for my ex-wife, how did this feel for my son. I would never do that.
Right.
But I go very far, and I even deliver out private stuff if it's all in my ballpark.
I wonder, like, something from Echoes. Does the song that you wrote back then ever change its meaning over the years? I know where it comes from, or you know where it comes from, and what inspired it. And oftentimes I presume that you hear a song and you would go directly to maybe even the moment you wrote it or the moment you recorded it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, your perspective of the song is never the same as my perspective of your song.
Right. I think that's what changes.
Right.
Like we talked on earlier, your perspective changes throughout your life. And also sometimes to the point where there are certain songs, I tell the band, no, this is too immature. This doesn't taste well anymore.
Right.
That can happen. And other songs grow on me. Also because when you play it for people and people start to, one of the biggest compliments I can get if somebody comes up after a concert, I want you to tell me, I want you to know that this song helped me through this or that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge compliment as a songwriter. And those things kind of makes the song have their own life.
Right.
And once they have their own life, they're kind of outside me in it, and then they can keep living. Sometimes I actually experience something funny that I really like. People come and say, this song about this and that helped me through. And in myself, I don't say it out loud, but it's not actually always what I thought the song was about.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a funny thing, and when that happens, I feel I succeeded in what I wanted to. Write something personal, but also make it rise above writing in a diary, so it can be something people can relate to.
So you've recorded this album. It's been out since September. It's a great collection of songs. You're really happy with, I guess, where you're at with these songs. And as you said, you were happy with this album. What happens next? How do you get this out there, and how do you ensure that people hear this album as they should?
Well, that's very difficult. I mean, I try my best, but the whole process of getting your music heard and getting your music out there is, in one way, easier than when I started, because you have all these platforms.
Mm-hmm.
But these platforms are bombarded with music. So I try to. I mean, I'm not a big social media guy. I kind of hate it, but it's a necessity, and you have to. But there are certain things in Denmark. It's happened very well. The national radio playlisted 2 songs, which is not easy anymore. So it's getting a lot of airplay here.
Which songs? I'm curious.
Before It Was Good and Don't Waste Your Time.
Okay, I can see that. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, as I said, Don't Waste Your Time is brilliant.
Thank you.
Just so catchy, and I can see
it separates people. Some think I take it too far, and other people say, "Wow, you nailed it."
Right. And Before I Was Good is just it's brilliant.
I wrote that with a good friend of mine, Billy Cross, who he's a legend here. He's from New York, and he toured with Bob Dylan in the '60s.
Wow.
And when they came to Denmark, he found his wife. And he became this legend in Denmark. He played guitar and produced for everybody here. And he's 30 years older than me, but we're very good friends. And we realized that because I mostly write in my own, by myself, I find co-writing a little difficult. But once you hit people or where the chemistry is there, it can create some other songs. And this song I wrote with Billy, and we were in his apartment, and he said, "What should we write about?" And we started talking, and I said, "Well, recently I heard a recording of something I played when I was maybe 17, And I realized when I heard it, I'm never going to be able to play that thing that well again. Because when I played it, I had no idea what I was doing. And then he looked at me and said, there's a song there. We started talking about this. When you look back on your life and you see and you remember episodes where you nailed something without knowing what you did.
Right.
That's very beautiful. Then you start analyzing it because you want to do it again. And it never becomes that authentic or that fresh as that. I mean, you can never do it that. Then you can do something else really good because you become more refined and you become better and you can analyze things.
Right.
But that instinct thing, you can never do that again. And that's what we came up with that line, I was better before it was good.
No, it's a brilliant line.
Thanks.
Does the exposure that you get on Danish national radio automatically translate into other countries hearing you?
No. It automatically, maybe because the country's so small. I imagine it would be the same in the States if you get nationwide attention. It's also a big thing there, right?
Right.
Yeah. So here, when you get playlisted on the national radio, and I also was lucky to get a live performance on national TV, that automatically, instantly translate into ticket sales and attention right away. It doesn't really cross the borders now.
So
It's not like if you have a attention on Danish national radio that then they would do it as well in Sweden and Norway and Germany. No.
right, but I wonder if there's any leakage, like your neighbors,
There's leakage, but it's more like now we come back to the social platforms.
Right.
If you get a good TV performance in Denmark that is very professionally done and is from a very established media, and you put that on Instagram, they see it in Germany, and all of a sudden you're an established name, and they get interested. So that way, there's a leakage.
Like, I just wonder, I know your blues background, but as I said, I don't think this is a blues album. I don't know if it gets played on the blues radio shows.
It actually does.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because to me,
But they choose other songs. They choose Big Mouth or Pack Your Bags or
right.
yeah.
But just to have that exposure, I think, because one thing I do know is that there is an infrastructure to the blues, and so if some blues people are playing this album, then other blues radio stations might look into it. So, but I don't know if I don't know if they're Americana stations or
Actually, I
root
think,
stations.
and it's as I said early on, it's something I stopped thinking too much about. But I was happy to see that this was received well, both in France and Denmark, and by the blues magazines and radios. There are songs they like,
Right.
and I like that because I read those things myself and hear them because I'm still a huge blues fan. Sometimes what we talk about here has been an issue, especially in Germany. Germany is an amazing country to play in because they have a huge live culture and they have great audiences. But Europe is also very different. In Denmark is a very free, liberal country. Sweden is more strict, and Germany is more. I hope they don't get offended, but maybe more box thinking. So when I was playing there a lot, I often entered the blues venues, and they liked what I did, and they were very respectful. But I always sensed, we thought you were coming with something else. So if you think you're going to hear Walter Trout and all of a sudden, or Bonamassa, and I say that I have a tremendous respect, but if you go to a concert and you think you're going to hear that, and all of a sudden you hear a guy with songs, and maybe in every other song he plays a short guitar solo, then I understand the reaction. Well, we hear this is good, but we're also a little disappointed. So that becomes sometimes it's an advantage for me because I on a blues festival I become the guy who stands out.
Right.
And in other situations, it's a little bit difficult because I bring something else than they thought.
Does this album change your live performance? Like, do you feature mainly this album, or how does that work?
Especially the next year. Yeah, we're going to focus on this album. But in Denmark, now that I'm in my late 40s and I've been doing this since my early 20s, people here know that if they want a straight, old school, classic blues concert, there are other artists that does that better. They do that better. So people who come to my show, they expect to hear bluesy elements, but they know and have accepted that this can go in a lot of directions.
No, as I said, it's an impressive album, and people
Thank
who
you.
haven't heard it should look it up. It's Mike Andersen.
Thanks.
All Out of Love. It's a fantastic album. So,
Thank you.
Mike, it's a pleasure meeting you. As I said, I had the chance
Likewise.
to listen to this album and become a fan, and which made me immediately go backwards and seek out your other stuff. And you know, the songs are strong and have always been, and your voice is amazing. So thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. This was a very interesting conversation. I really appreciate it.